That sound happens billions of times a day, all over the world, on almost everything you own, and almost no one ever really looks at the thing that makes it. A little block of black and white stripes. It rides on your cereal, your medicine, the book on your shelf. It's one of the most scanned objects in human history. And for something so ordinary, it had a strange, slow, almost accidental birth. This is the story of the barcode. To see why it mattered, picture the checkout line before it existed. Every price was rung in by hand. Every can and box was stamped, one at a time, with a grease pencil. A cashier read the tag, found the key, and punched the number. Item after item after item. A good cashier memorized hundreds of prices. A great one was fast. But everyone made mistakes, and the line crawled. A wrong price meant a void, a key, a manager called over, while the whole line waited. On a busy evening, the front of the store was a wall of people. And every mistake at the register was money that quietly walked out the door. There was a deeper problem too, one the shoppers never saw. The store had no real idea what it was selling. At closing time, the managers were guessing. What ran out? What just sat there? They counted the shelves by hand on clipboards and still got it wrong. By the 1940s, grocers were desperate to speed up the line and to finally see their own shelves. They just had no idea how. The answer began with a question, asked out loud in the wrong room. In 1948, a food chain executive walked into Drexel Institute of Technology in Philadelphia. He asked the dean to build a machine that could read prices automatically. The dean turned him down. But a graduate student named Bernard Silver happened to overhear. Silver brought it to a friend, a restless young inventor, Norman Joseph Woodland. Woodland was 27, a Drexel teacher who had worked on the Manhattan Project. And he could not let the problem go. His first idea, ink that glowed under ultraviolet light, worked, but it smeared and faded. So he quit his teaching job, moved into his grandfather's apartment in Florida, and just thought. The breakthrough came on a beach in Miami. He was sitting in the sand, turning the problem over, when he remembered Morse code, the dots and dashes he had learned as a Boy Scout. Almost without thinking, he dragged 4 fingers down through the sand. Dots and dashes, pulled downward into thin and thick lines. Then he swept his hand around in a circle. The stripes became rings, a bullseye, a code you could read from any direction. He filed the patent in 1949. It was granted in 1952, the very first barcode. And then, nothing happened. For 20 years. The idea was sound. The world just wasn't ready. To read the code, you needed a bright, precise light and a computer cheap enough to sit at a register. In 1952, neither one existed. The light wouldn't arrive until 1960, when the first laser was switched on. The cheap computer wouldn't arrive until 1971, with the first microchip. Woodland's own reader was the size of a desk and ran hot enough to be a fire hazard. It was a beautiful answer to a question no one could yet afford. In 1952, he and Silver sold the patent for $15,000. It was the only money either of them ever made from it. Woodland had taken a job at IBM and spent years trying to get them to build it. They passed. Bernard Silver died in 1963 at 38. He never saw it work. The patent expired in 1969, still sitting unused. The barcode waited on a shelf for the rest of technology to catch up. And slowly, it did. The grocery industry, drowning in rising costs, decided to try again. This time together. They formed a committee to agree on one shared code for the whole country. That part matters more than it sounds. A barcode is only useful if everyone agrees to use the exact same one. RCA, IBM, and others each brought a symbol to the table. RCA went first, with Woodland's round bullseye, tested in a Cincinnati supermarket. But printed at full speed, the circles smeared and the scanner choked. The next attempt landed at IBM with an engineer named George Laurer. Laurer looked at the bullseye and saw the flaw. When a circle smears, it becomes unreadable. So he straightened it out into a rectangle of vertical bars. Smear a vertical bar, and the scanner can still read straight across it. He added the row of digits we still see and a hidden check to catch misreads. On April 3, 1973, the committee chose Laurer's design. He called it the Universal Product Code, the UPC. By 1974, the code was set and the scanners were built, and one Ohio supermarket was ready to try it for real. At 1 minute past 8, on the morning of June 26 in Troy, Ohio, the first item in the world crossed the glass, an ordinary 10-pack of gum, Wrigley's Juicy Fruit. The store's research chief, Clyde Dawson, had chosen it on purpose, to prove the scanner could read a code even on something small and curved. A cashier named Sharon Buchanan slid it across the glass. 67 cents, the first product in history rung up by a barcode. That pack of gum is long gone, but the scanner that read it sits today in the Smithsonian. It was a quiet moment. No fireworks, just a beep and a receipt. And it was the beginning of everything. At first, almost no one followed. The scanners cost a fortune, and they were useless unless the products carried the code. A chicken and egg standoff. Stores wouldn't buy scanners until products had barcodes. Makers wouldn't print barcodes until stores had scanners. For years, it teetered. 5 years in, fewer than one store in 100 had a scanner. Then, in the late 1970s, the math tipped, and the barcodes spread like a tide. And here's the twist. The famous payoff, the faster line, was the smallest thing it did. Because every beep wasn't just a price. It was a piece of data. For the first time, a store knew, instantly, what had just sold and what was left. Multiply that by every item, every store, every day, and you get something entirely new, a live, ticking map of what the world is buying. That map rebuilt everything behind the curtain. Shelves that signaled when to restock. Trucks routed by the numbers. Whole warehouses reorganized around what the scanners said was moving. The loyalty card in your wallet, frequently bought together. The just-in-time delivery. The big box era that followed, the warehouse clubs, the superstores, was only possible once a machine could track 40,000 items at once. Today, that little code moves trillions of dollars of goods a year. All of it grew out of that one little stripe of bars. The barcode didn't just speed up the checkout, it quietly wired the entire physical economy. So the next time you hear that beep, that sound you've heard 10,000 times and never once noticed, remember where it began. With Morse code drawn in the sand by a man who was 20 years too early. Norman Woodland lived to see his stripes on almost everything made. In 1992, his country gave him its highest honor for invention. He never made a fortune from the barcode. He made something far larger. One of the most quietly powerful inventions ever built, hiding in plain sight on a pack of gum.